Welcome to WorldWire. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. Imagine you're running a lemonade stand, pouring cold drinks on a hot day, hoping to make a little extra cash, and maybe even outdo the other kids on your block. Suddenly, your neighbor sets up their own stand and undercuts your price, drawing away your customers and making you worry about your profits. Frustrated, you ask your parents to step in and make your competitor pay a fee for every cup they sell. That's what's known as a tariff, a kind of penalty for selling cheaper. Tariffs are taxes placed on imported goods, designed to make those products more expensive and encourage people to buy local instead. The Trump administration used this logic on a massive scale, not just for lemonade, but for billions of dollars in goods from around the world, hoping to make American products more competitive and revive struggling industries. For years, U.S. industries had struggled to keep up with cheaper imports, fueling a widespread belief that America was being taken advantage of by foreign competitors and losing jobs as a result. Trump revived tariffs as a tool to protect American jobs and punish what he called unfair trade practices, promising that this tough approach would lead to a stronger, more self-reliant economy. But the plan quickly became a tangled web. Tariffs hit everything from steel to toys, affecting not just rivals but also longtime allies, and creating confusion for businesses everywhere. The result? Global markets were rattled, businesses scrambled to adapt, and what started as a simple idea soon spiraled into economic chaos and uncertainty. By late 2025, the policy's foundation is under fire from lawsuits, frustrated businesses, and even some of Trump's own political allies who once supported the move. The dream of economic independence has crashed into the reality of a deeply connected world, where every action has far-reaching consequences. The story of these tariffs is a lesson in unintended consequences, affecting everyone from Ohio factory workers to London shoppers, and showing just how complicated a simple idea can become in today's global economy. Trump's economic strategy promised to protect American industry and bring back jobs, vowing to restore the country's manufacturing might and revive communities that had been left behind by globalization. The administration blamed foreign countries, especially China, for undercutting U.S. manufacturers and hollowing out the industrial heartland. They argued that unfair trade practices and cheap imports had devastated American towns and cost millions of jobs. The solution, tariffs, was designed to make imports more expensive, giving American companies a fighting chance to compete. By raising the cost of foreign goods, the administration hoped to encourage consumers and businesses to buy American-made products instead. Another goal was to shrink the U.S. trade deficit. Trump saw it as a scoreboard of national success, believing that a smaller deficit meant a stronger, more independent America. Tariffs were supposed to discourage imports, close the trade gap, and generate billions for the Treasury. Supporters claimed this would not only protect jobs, but also provide new revenue for the government to invest in American priorities. The administration also used tariffs as leverage, pressuring countries like China, Mexico, and Canada on issues from trade to fentanyl. Tariffs became a tool for broader negotiations, not just economic policy. The message: play by Washington's rules or lose access to the U.S. market. America was drawing a line, making it clear that access to its vast consumer base came with new conditions. This was a sharp break from decades of free trade consensus, upending the old order and challenging the idea that open markets always benefit everyone. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent defended the approach, calling the trade deficit and fentanyl crisis national emergencies. He argued that bold action was needed to protect American lives and livelihoods. The vision: a self-reliant America, factories humming, workers employed, and communities thriving once again. But this bold plan soon collided with reality. As the global economy pushed back and unintended consequences emerged. Allies were alienated, costs rose, and the promised manufacturing boom never materialized. Many businesses struggled with higher prices, and some jobs never returned. The economic walls, built to protect America, started to show cracks, raising questions about whether protectionism could truly deliver on its promises. The tariffs sparked immediate backlash, not just abroad, but at home. U.S. businesses, reliant on global supply chains, faced soaring costs and took the fight to court. The legal question: does the president have the power to impose sweeping tariffs, or is that Congress's job? Lower courts ruled against the administration, saying Trump overstepped by using emergency powers for economic policy. Injunctions were issued but put on hold, letting the government keep collecting billions as the case moved up. Now, the Supreme Court is set to decide: Can the president unilaterally reshape trade policy? A ruling against Trump could dismantle his signature tariffs and force massive refunds. The fate of the entire policy hangs on a few lines in the Constitution. While courts debated, Americans felt the tariffs' impact in their wallets. Prices rose on everything from appliances to electronics. Studies showed U.S. consumers, not foreign exporters, paid the price. Businesses faced higher costs for parts, squeezing profits and forcing tough choices. Absorb losses, raise prices, or move operations abroad. The trade war's uncertainty rattled markets, with threats and counter-threats causing wild swings and delaying investments. Diplomatic fallout was severe. Tariffs on allies, like Canada and Europe, strained relationships. Trade talks collapsed over seemingly minor disputes, deepening rifts. Instead of uniting allies against unfair practices, the U.S. found itself increasingly isolated. The policy, meant to protect American interests, often backfired, hurting consumers and businesses alike. The global economic storm showed no signs of calming. For years, Washington talked tough about self-sufficiency and making everything in America. Tariffs were supposed to force a break from foreign dependence, but now, even top officials and business leaders admit the U.S. is deeply reliant on imports for critical goods. J.P. Morgan Chase's CEO bluntly warned of America's vulnerability, prompting a $1.5 trillion investment push to shore up key industries. The rare earth minerals standoff with China exposed a harsh truth: the U.S. can't produce everything it needs. The administration softened its rhetoric, backing off threats of massive new tariffs. The central promise of tariff policy, independence, collapsed under the weight of reality. Instead of freeing the U.S. from imports, tariffs highlighted just how dependent the country remains. America antagonized suppliers but failed to build domestic capacity. This public reckoning forced a painful re-evaluation of America's place in the global economy. While the U.S. built economic walls, the rest of the world built new bridges, forging fresh connections and partnerships across continents. The old assumption was that countries like China depended on the U.S. market to survive and thrive, but the reality was different. They adapted with remarkable speed and resilience. China's exports to the U.S. dropped, but overall exports grew as they found new markets in Europe, Asia, Africa, and South America, diversifying their trade partners and reducing reliance on any single country. Chinese firms moved up the value chain, investing heavily in high-tech industries, research and innovation, transforming their economy for the future. U.S. tariffs, meant to cripple China, instead pushed it to become more competitive, efficient, and self-reliant than ever before. Other countries followed suit. Canada strengthened ties with Europe, Mexico looked to Latin America and Asia, and the EU sought greater strategic autonomy, forging new alliances. Global trade reorganized into new regional hubs, with the U.S. playing a less central role as new networks flourished. The world didn't wait for America. It learned to get by without it, building new systems and relationships. The tariffs didn't bring the world to its knees, they taught it to adapt, innovate, and ultimately grow stronger. America's attempt to isolate itself only accelerated its own marginalization as the world moved forward together. As the dust settles, the verdict is clear. The tariff experiment failed to deliver. American jobs weren't saved, the trade deficit remains, and economic independence proved elusive. Instead, consumers paid more, businesses struggled, and allies drifted away. The policy exposed America's vulnerabilities rather than fixing them. Meanwhile, China and others adapted, forging new partnerships and reducing reliance on the U.S. The world's economic center of gravity shifted, leaving America more isolated. The lesson: in a global economy, building walls often traps you inside. Real strength comes from smart investment, innovation, and global engagement, not isolation.